Shri Gurubhyo Namah. Good morning to everyone and a very warm welcome to yet another session of Weekend with Wisdom. This is Nitin Sridhar, Chief Curator of Advaita Academy, and let us begin with a small prayer. Sada Shiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guru Ratmeti Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomotvyapta Dehaya Shri Dakshina Murtaye Namaha Bharati Karuna Patram Bharati Padabhushanam Bharati Padamarudam Bharati Tirthamashraye Vidya Vinaya Sampannam Vitaragam Vivekinam Vande Vedanta Tattvakyam Vidushekara Bharati. Today we have a special guest, Professor Suresh Deshpande ji from Bangalore. Professionally, he is currently retired. He retired in 2004 and he was professor in the Department of Aerospace Engineering in the Indian Institute of Science. So, though from an engineering background and having worked in an engineering profession, Dr. Deshpande ji has a very keen interest in Vedanta. He has studied Vedanta. He has been teaching Vedanta for many years now, and we are all fortunate to have him here today. A very warm welcome to you, sir, on our show, Weekend with Wisdom. Viewers, Dr. Deshpande ji will be speaking today on a very important topic on Maya in Advaita Vedanta. Maya is a topic which has created a lot of confusion among many people, lot of controversy, so to speak, lot of misconceptions about Vedanta, and hopefully all of you will be richer, and your understanding will get your doubts clarified by Dr. Deshpande ji. And with this very brief opening remarks, I request Dr. Deshpande ji to start his session. Viewers, please note whatever questions you have, please put it in Q&A box and not in the chat box. And sir will take it up towards the end of the session, last 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Nitin. I'm very happy to be here among you, and my thanks to Nitin and my very young friend Aniket Khare for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts with all of you. At the very outset, I would quote a shloka or so from Mahakavi Kalidas from Raghuvamsha. Mahakavi Kalidas, all of you know, was a very great poet of India, and I had the fortune of knowing him in very early stages of life from my father in Nagpur, Wardha, Vidarbha area of Maharashtra. So Kalidas says, Usurya Prabhavo Vamshaha Kachalpa Vishaya Matihi. Where is the great Raghuvamsha and where is my Alpamati, my dull-wittedness? Mandah Kavi Yashaf Prarthi, people will say that he is a Mandah Kavi, Manda Buddhi, less intellect, and wants great success. Gamishyame Upahasyatam will become object of ridicule among great scholars, Pandits, and Vidwan. So if Mahakavi Kalidas says such words about himself, while writing on Raghuamsha, you can imagine my state, my feeling while speaking about the great Shankaracharya, for whom I had deep respect and reverence. As Nitin told, right in the beginning, Maya is a is one of the very misunderstood terms in India, just like secularism term in India. I often heard many people say, all this is Maya. सब मोह माया है भाई, सब मोह माया है, सब मिथ्या है, etc. Some argue that this led people to neglect this life, what we call as laukika, and prompted them not to take the ihaloka, this life, seriously. Some even go to the extent of saying that the food cooked by your mother, by your wife, is mithya, the material is mithya, what you eat is mithya. Why take this life seriously? They have gone to such ridiculous extents when Acharya said, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, the famous Vedanta. Maya is a very technical term in Advaita Vedanta. It is what we call as paribhashika terminology, a scientific jargon. Has a very subtle meaning. It is intimately related to the central question, what is reality? What is the nature of its being? Ontology, as they say. Can it be known, the reality? Epistemology, as we use those English words. Our ancient masters have often debated this central issue about the nature of reality. What is yathartha? What is ayathartha? Why we get this ayathartha jnana? And how are you certain that the knowledge or the jnana that we have acquired is yathartha? So many darshan shastras in our country have discussed this issue for thousands of years. And there is this famous Sanskrit word called khyati, to know, kya. And we have terms like sat khyati, asat khyati, anyatha khyati, anirvachaniya khyati. And I have added to this list called asanna khyati, an approximate knowledge based on my own study of science. I continue to study the concept of Maya. I have done that all my life, and every time I obtain a new insight based on my own understanding of the Shankar Bhashya and the developments in science. Once again, I am thankful to Aniket and Nitin that they have made this possible. At the very outset, I think there is a tradition in reputed scientific journals of the world that when somebody publishes a paper or writes a scientific article, you must write the keywords before the body of the paper. You must write the keywords. The keywords give you some idea of what is going to follow. So let me go through some keywords which I'm going to use very often in this talk. So one keyword, satyasya abhita mukham. It comes from Ishavasyopanishad. the face of truth is covered. Another keyword comes from Gita. Daivesha gunamayi mama maya durattaya. This maya is gunamayi, durattaya, very difficult to cross. Maya mitam tarantite. Only those who surrender to me cross this maya. Again in Gita, the word maya comes. Brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra rudhani maya. Yantra rudhani maya. As if being mounted on a machine and the machine makes others rotate. Similarly, all bhutas, all jivatmas, all people, they kind of orbit rotate. Esha sarveshu bhuteshu gudhatmana prakashate. This is very, very deep, very subtle, very gudha, very mysterious, and does not reveal. Naisha tarkena matirapaneya. Cannot be captured in tarka, in arguments. Avyakta namni paramesha shakti, says Shankaracharya in Viveka Chudamani. It is avyakta, unmanifest. It is the Paramesha Shakti, the power of the Almighty. Then the Pratyabhijna Darshan of the Kashmiri Shaiva Sampradaya, they use a technical term, Swarupa Gopana Rupa Shakti. Swarupa Gopana Rupa Shakti. It has the power of hiding its own true nature. Again, following the great Acharya, in all my talk when I say Acharya, that automatically means Bhagavad Shankaracharya, na sat api, na asat api, neither sat nor true, nor asat. Asat vilakshana, different from both. Anirvachaniya, indescribable. This is a technical term introduced by Shankaracharya himself. I'm sure all of you know that when we study engineering, science, medicine, different branches, each branch has its own technical terminology, what we call as scientific jargon. The greatness of the Acharya lies in correctly finding out these technical terms. And obviously, the language is Sanskrit. So, Anirvachaniya Maya is a wonderful terminology and Sanskrit expression of the great Acharya. Asanna Khyati. Asanna means close, approximate. I'm sure some of you have studied Advaita, the great Indian mathematician and astronomer. When he calculates the value of pi as 22/7, he says asanna iti. It is close, but not that. Anyatha khyati, seeing it other way. And the famous statement by Acharya, asat cheta na pratiyeta. If it is not there, it should not be a subject of our experience. Sat cheta na badhyeta. And if it is true, then it cannot be sublated. It cannot evaporate. Not this, but that. This phrase, not this, but that, is used by a Nobel Prize winner, P.W. Anderson, who recently passed away. Not this, but that. And this is very similar to what we call in Vedanta Darshan, Jahat Ajahat Lakshana. That is, you give up something and you accept something. Not this is Jahat Lakshana. And this, but that is Ajahat Lakshana. That is, you accept something, you reject something, also called as Bhaga Tyaga Lakshana in Vedanta Darshan. Jnana Nivartya, a very powerful terminology used by Shankaracharya, sublated by knowledge. nivartana, it goes away. Mithyattva, the falsification. This word falsification was introduced in scientific terminology by Karl Popper, an Australian logician, in the early part of the last century. But our great Acharya has introduced it thousands of years ago, 1200 years ago. Jnana nivarta, mithya, yatha shukti rajatadau. What is there before you is shukti, but you take it as rajat. Tatra tatra mithyatvam, yatra yatra jnana nivartam. Whatever is sublated by knowledge, then it is automatically falsified. These are the words of Acharya. Avarana, covering. Vikshepa, that is thinking that is other way. Pratibhasika satta, these are the words of Shankaracharya. Adhyasa, something different from existence and non-existence. These are the binary categories of existence. It is not. What we call as Boolean logic, false or true. But this third category, something different from existence, something different from non-existence. Aprameya is a term used for the Paramatma. In Brahma Sutra Bhashya, tasya hi pratyaksha pramanani, which is the Bhashya of Acharya, and he says that the Atma Paramatma is aprameya. I am also going to use a concept from logic called LEM, Law of Excluded Middle. That is, this law says there is no third possibility. And to my utter amazement, when I read Acharya and also modern mathematical logic, I found Acharya has anticipated 1200 years ago that these two categories, true and false, we have to go beyond that and accept the third possibility. So I will dwell upon it as I proceed. Proof by contradiction is a very powerful method in modern mathematics and very useful in proving theorems on infinite sets. So modern mathematics, infinite sets, they all contain logic. And Acharya's Bhashya also contains logic. And there is a striking similarity. Then I will also go into some evolutions of classical physics and quantum physics, where the question of reality is investigated, questions are asked, our old ideas change, and reality has been the subject of study by our darshanics for a very long time. I will also touch upon few aspects of the theory of relativity, again to come back to this question of Maya from a different point of view. Also, there is a very famous statement in Yaksha Prashna. You know that there is Vanaparva in Mahabharata, and there's a dialogue between Yudhishthir and Yaksha, and there is a famous Yaksha Prashna, Ko Panthaha, Kaha Panthaha, what is the path, for which our great Dharmaraja says, Tarko Apatishtaha. Tarka and logic cannot take a very definite position. So the words like paroksha and aparoksha, which are used many times in Vedanta darshan by Acharya, in English it means inferential, mediate, no direct knowledge. Inferential, mediate knowledge. It is conjectural. It is by way of conjecture. It is tentative. It is provisional. It is falsifiable. So these are all English words for badhayogya. karyanumeya, inference from the karya. There are many issues like this which I will touch upon. I think these keywords, technical terms I'm giving so that you have some idea of what is going to follow. There is a very nice advice given to a research student when he writes his thesis. The advice is, tell them what you are going to tell them. Then tell them. Then tell them what you have told them. So in the beginning, you give some idea of what is going to follow. Then there's a main body. And finally, you summarize. So these different technical terms and paribhasha is meant for giving you some idea, some feeling about what is going to follow in the course of my talk. Yadvati yad prakarakatvam yatharthatvam. What is yathartha? This is the definition from Darshan Shastra. Tat abhavati tat prakarakatvam. It is not there, but still you feel it is there. Ayathartatvam. Then there is also a concept of a paradox. In logic, there is an idea of what is called as self-referencing. A statement applies to itself. Like, this statement is false. No. And our great Lokmanya Tilak had centuries ago talked about such paradox. It looks like an apparently paradoxical statement, but it is very deep. So let me quote that by way of telling what is a paradox. Unless we do the himsa of himsa, we cannot establish ahimsa. That is what he says. This is the statement of Lokmanya Tilak more than 100 years ago. And to my surprise and amazement, when I was studying the logic, essays on logic by Karl Raimund Popper, an Austrian-German logician, he also said the paradox. Every tolerant society must be intolerant to intolerance. Otherwise, it will be seized by intolerance. So you see the semantics paradoxes which arise. So I'm going to also refer to these very subtle concepts in logic while discussing the Shankariya Maya. Lastly, I will quote a paragraph from Sherlock Holmes. You know that Sherlock Holmes was a detective, very famous, and he had a friend called Watson. So he tells Watson, "Ah, my dear Watson, there we come to the realm of conjecture. We come to the realm of conjecture, inference, where the most logical mind may be at fault. Each may form his own hypothesis upon present evidence, and yours is as likely to be true or as likely to be false as mine." This is a paragraph from Arthur Conan Doyle. So it shows a very indefinite, falsifiable nature of conjecture and inference. Please recall that Shankaracharya in Viveka Chudamani, in one slok, Avyakta namni Paramesha Shakti Anadya Vidya Trigunatmaka Karyanumeya, he calls this as Karyanumeya, inferred from the Karya. Karyanumeya Maya, Maya Jagat, Yaya Jagat, Sarvamidam Prasuyate, gives rise to this whole world. So he uses the word Karyanumeya. I have given some feel for what is going to follow, and our Vedanta darshan requires a lot of discrimination, lot of thinking, lot of vichara, viveka. And over years of my study, I have listed the different vivekas Vedanta darshan does. And we will need them as we proceed. Sthula Sukshma Viveka, what is gross and what is subtle, the ability to discriminate. Drugdashya Viveka, who is the seer and what is seen. Avasthatraya Viveka, the Viveka about the three states, Jagruti, Swapna and Sushupti. Prapancha Paramartha Viveka, we have to do Prapancha and we have to also follow the Paramarthic path. So Prapancha Paramartha Vivek. This was very powerfully stated by the great saint of Maharashtra called Samarth Ramdas in his book Dasbodh. Sara Asara Viveka, Nirakshira Viveka, Panchakosha, Khyati Viveka, Pramana Shastra, Karyakarana Vichar, Triputi Vichar, Sadhak Badhaka Vichar, Ishta Anishta Vichar, Sukadukka Mimamsa, Karma Karma Vichar, Saguna Nirguna Vivek, and Avidya Vichar. So there are so many Vivekas, Vicharas, which we require in daily life, in acquiring knowledge, while we study nature, and also while knowing what is the Paramartha. I am very happy that I have been benefited tremendously in study of physics, chemistry, mathematics, science, engineering, tremendously benefited by these Vivekas which are there in our Vedanta darshan, Nyaya darshan, Vaisheshika darshan, Sankhya darshan, Yoga darshan. These are all characteristics of what is now called as Indic epistemology. There is a Padartha Vichar also. For example, one question which modern science has raised, often mathematical objects are used in describing reality. So there is a question, are these mathematical objects real? Do they have reality? Are they padarthas? There is a Platonic school in mathematics where they believe that these mathematical objects like derivative, integral, matrices, differentials, Taylor series, so many mathematical objects are there, different spaces, they are there, they are real, complex numbers. And this view is called Platonian. So you see the question of reality takes us very deep into various issues. And this is precisely what our great rishis and masters did. What is the nature of reality? Vaisheshika darshan in particular has done this Padartha Vichar. And I will come to it. One of the great believers in Platonism that the reality of the mathematical objects is the famous scientist Roger Penrose, who got recently a Nobel Prize for his very important research in black holes. So, I will now, after introducing all these technical terminologies and what is going to follow, I will briefly begin how I began my investigation, my journey into this field. Long back, when I was about 18 to 19 years old, I was studying in Science and Engineering College in Nagpur. I happened to attend a pravachan on Jnaneshwari. Jnaneshwar, as you know, is a great saint and a yogi of Maharashtra and is known to have brought to Maharashtra the Advaita of Shankaracharya from South India, the Nath Sampradaya, Yoga Sampradaya from Gorakshanath from North India, and the Bhakti of Pundalika from Pandharpur. So I was listening to a pravachan by one scholar from Nagpur on Jnaneshwari. And that particular day, he gave his pravachan on this famous shloka in Gita. I referred to it before. Daivesha gunamayi mama maya duratyaya mame vaye prapadyante maya metam tarantite. It was a brilliant pravachan. And the Saint Jnaneshwar has described the Maya Nadi. It's a slok from Gita, and there is a bhashya of Saint Jnaneshwar in Marathi on that. In a very metaphorical way, he has described the concept of Maya in his commentary on this loka. Daivesha gunamayi mama maya. That's what Bhagavan Krishna says. Mama maya durattaya, difficult to cross. It had a very lasting impression on me. I was for the first time introduced to this concept of Maya from this shloka of Gita. It triggered my curiosity and I became a jidnyasu, a person having thirst for knowledge at a very young age. After doing BE in electrical engineering from VNIT Nagpur, and electrical engineering is full of mathematical concepts like magnetic field, electric field, electromagnetic field, and lot of vector calculus is used in electrical engineering. So after doing that, I came to IISc Bangalore in August 1963, to do ME in aerospace engineering. And we had a group of very committed and devoted students discussing Vedanta. The famous Dr. Nagendra, who has now S. Vyasa University in Jigni on the outskirts of Bangalore, he was my friend and classmate. Another person was Mukunda, my contemporary. He was from Mysore, came to Bangalore for study. Yet another person was Prabhu. We were all research students and MTech students together, and we also had one senior professor from Vijaya College called Professor Satyanarayan Shastri. He was a professor of chemistry, deep interest in Shankar Bhashya and Yoga Vasishtha. We used to meet very often and discuss these very fine aspects of Advaita Vedanta. One day, it was a fashion during those days, I walked all the way from IISc Bangalore to Ramakrishna Mission, Bull Temple Road, and purchased some books on Upanishads, the famous Dashopanishad. I'm sure you all know them. Ishavasya, Mandukya, Kenopanishad, Chandogya, Bhutaranya, Kata, and so on. That particular book had the Mool Sanskrit mantra from the Upanishads and an English translation of Acharya's Bhashya. Right from the beginning, I had a very deep respect and shraddha in our great Acharya. And as I turned through the pages of Ishavasyopanishad, I stumbled upon one mantra, one sloka. Hiranmayana patrena satyasya abhitam mukham. In a very metaphorical and colorful way, the Rishi is saying that the face of the truth is covered by golden lid. There's some kind of a golden pot. In that golden pot, the truth is hidden. Abhitam mukham. Covered. Tattvam pushanna apavranu. Tattvam, you. Pushanna, you, the God Almighty, who does the poshana of all of us, apavranu, remove that cover. Satya dharmaya drushtaye, and show me the path of seeing the truth. Satya dharmaya drushtaye. What a prayer a humble mind has made to the God Almighty. Please show us the path. Please help us in removing this covering. Apitam mukham, apavranu. Remove that. This particular shloka attracted my attention. The golden pot has covered the face of truth. For me, who is a seeker of truth, oh Lord, remove this is a prarthana. What is this covering? I asked. What is this avarana? Were the questions. I was asking again and again to myself. Also, as a student in IISc during that period, after finishing MA, I became a research student to do PhD. I was studying large number of subjects: fluid dynamics, control theory, fluid dynamics, mathematics, what you call as STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Also had an interest in studying many developments in modern physics. In those days, there was the students' interest was you read the master, read Shankaracharya directly, read Einstein directly, read the founders, the fathers of quantum mechanics directly, read the scientists who have invented mathematics, great mathematicians, read them, read the master, read the original, go to the Mula. And when I was reading these books, I stumbled upon a statement: representation of physical reality by mathematics. One of the great contributions of modern science is that they represent the physical reality around us with the help of mathematics. They construct mathematical models. There I came across a statement by a great physicist, a very colorful, very metaphorical statement. You know, when a scientist goes deep into the study of nature, he becomes a poet. So this is a poetical statement by him. It said, a famous physicist said, that a demon of differential equations, is riding on the back of the stars, planets, to tell them how to go. Oh, my dear Earth, don't take this particular path in the orbit. It will violate the laws of motion. It will violate the Newtonian mechanics. Please take this path. It's as if the Earth, while orbiting, is forced to obey the mathematical model of differential equations. This is the mathematical representation of physical reality he was talking about. But also we know that as the developments in physics take place, the mathematical models describing the nature change. So even in science, the full truth is not revealed. Satyasya apihitam mukham. The avarana shakti of Maya of the great Shankaracharya. Avarana. Satyasya apihitam mukham. So even while studying the drishya, studying the idam in science, the truth is not fully revealed to us. It is kind of hidden from us. Brahmayan sarvabhutani yantra rudhani mayaya, and we get trapped in that. We take it for granted. No wonder that in Aitareya Upanishad, the Shishya or the student, Koyam Atmeti Vayam Upasmahe. Fundamental question. What is this Atma? Vayam Upasmahe. That we do the Upasana. We seek the truth. Yenava Pashyati. What we see around us, is it that? Yenava Shunoti. What we hear, is it that? Yenava Gandhan Adigrati. What we smell, is it that? Yenava Vacham Vakaroti. What we speak, Swadu Aswadu cha Vijanati. The swada, the taste we feel, is it that? What is spirit of inquiry? It reminded me a statement from the great Vivekananda that Upanishads stand for inquiry, stand for seeking the truth, seekers of truth. Our great country has this tradition of asking very basic questions, of seeking the truth. Scientists also are seekers of truth. So the Upanishadic seers and the scientists will have some commonalities and some differences too. Both are seekers of truth. Both want to get the yathartha jnana. Both don't want ayathartha jnana. Scientific research is idam nishtha, based on what you see outside. Idam. Vedanta darshan, Acharya, we talk of idam and aham. To use the term of great Shankaracharya, the modern science and the science, classical science, is idam nishtha. Idam nishtha. He also uses the word, it is yushmat pratyaya. How to put it differently, it deals with gneya. Only recently, scientists are thinking about consciousness, prajna, chit, chetana. It is slowly becoming aham nishtha. Or to use the phrase from Acharya, it is asmat pratyaya. So there is a neat distinction between yushmat pratyaya and asmat pratyaya, between idam and between aham, between jnaya and jnata. Only recently, I referred to this physicist before in my talk, Roger Penrose made a very important statement. A scientific worldview which does not profoundly come to terms with the problem of consciousness or conscious mind can have no serious pretension of completeness. So science was half truth. It only talks about idam. So I said Upanishads and science, both of them are seekers of truth, but science, before this Roger Penrose made this statement, was only doing research for idam. And even while doing research for idam, the truth is not fully revealed. The models, the theories keep changing with time. I'm going to refer to it in details as the talk proceeds. So I stumbled upon a phrase that science is drushyanuviddha. Those who know Abhijnana Shakuntal will remember this phrase, anuviddha, sarasijam anuviddham shaivalena piramyam. Sarasijam anuviddham. The sarasija, the lotus, is covered anuviddham by shaivala, and still it is beautiful. So, this drushyanuviddha vijnana, anuviddha, bound, controlled, limited to study, is drashta virahit and without the drashta, and hence it is idam nishtha. It is prayoga pradhan, based on experiment. In Sanskrit, it is called as prayoga pradhana satya samshodhana prakriya. A prakriya for searching the truth based on experiments and observations. Prayoga. And it is subject to satyasya apihitam mukham. What drusha is, what the idam is not fully revealed. As per the terminology of Shankaracharya, this partial truth that is revealed to us is therefore badhayogya. Badhayogya means worthy of being falsified. Karl Popper introduced this term falsifiable in 1905 or 10, and so on. But Acharya has introduced this concept of Badha Yogya, Badhita Prameya, Jnana Nivarta, sublated by knowledge, long, long back. So this actually puzzled me, intrigued me, excited me, triggered me, you say. There is something in the nature of the things, call it avarana shakti, call it Swarupa Gopana Rupa Shakti, Swarupa Gopana. My own nature is hidden, to the term from Pratyabhijna Darshan of Kashmiri Shaiva Sampradaya, which hides the true nature from us, from observers. As a side remark, I am sure you know that while getting a job in Intelligence Bureau or RAW, you have to have this ability of hiding your true nature. What is the role that is assigned to you by these agencies must not be known to anybody. So this Swarupa Gopana Rupa Shakti or Avarana Shakti not only covers the truth while doing research in science, it is also a necessary qualification if you want a very important, serious job in these fields. If you go to many defense labs, in the rooms of project directors, there will be a cupboard and it will be written there, Bharat Sarkar Param Gopaniya, the top secret, it is hidden from you. So sometimes hiding the true nature from others is very useful in running the affairs of a country. But that's a side remark. So there is something in the nature of things, we call it avarana shakti. Satyasya apihitam mukham. And a fantastic request, a humble request to the God Almighty, Tattvam Pushanna Apavruh. Pushan, because our Poshana is done by the God Almighty. So there is a request by this humble soul, the finite Jivatma, that help me in understanding the truth. Only to an humble mind the truth is revealed. In Viveka Chudamani, see the name Viveka Chudamani, the great Shankaracharya calls it Avyakta Namni Paramesha Shakti. There is some mysterious power with Parameshwara. Very Avyakta. It is very elusive. You don't seem to capture it. This Avyakta Namni Paramesha Shakti does the job of hiding the truth from you. It doesn't reveal. I think one scientist said, to construct theories about natural systems is like seeing the movement of the hands of a clock and trying to guess what is inside without opening the clock. You have to infer what is inside without seeing inside. You only see the outside. The most mysterious aspect of Maya is that it hides the truth from us. Avarana. And it is not enough. Further, after hiding the truth, it gives you a different impression of what truth is. That is technically called as anyatha khyati. Seeing other way, anyatha. Khyati with the knowledge. So first aspect of Maya is that the truth is hidden and revealed only partly. So based on that, you form a theory that is called as anyatha khyati. We call it theoretical model, etc. This is known in Darshan Shastra is avarnatmaka vikshepatmaka shakti. Avarnatmaka and vikshep appears other way. Some other future Vedantins have called this as Mula Vidya and Tula Vidya. Mula Vidya, some kind of a primordial ignorance of the fundamental nature of the reality. Mula. And whatever little you grasp, then you form a certain notion, a certain view, a certain conceptual framework, and that is called as vikshepa, vikshepatmaka. As a student of classical mechanics, because I was doing some research, I attended many classes in ISC and classical mechanics. I was absolutely impressed by this avanatmaka vikshepatmaka shakti. That the truth is hidden and appears to us differently. Vividha iti. It has two rupas. Vividha. So again, my mind went back. It's a very interesting thing. As you attend the lectures on different aspects of science, a thought comes. That was a prayer. Tattvam pushanna pavranu satya dharmaya drushtaye. I think this particular mantra is a very important mantra in Ishavasya Upanishad. Satyasya apihitam mukham. Tattvam pushanna pavranu satya dharmaya drushtaye. Please show me the path to the truth. Going further, to elaborate it, Mandan Mishra, if you visit Shrungeri Ashram, it's a real joy to visit the Shrungeri Pitha. That is an area where the holy feet of Acharya had walked upon. The air is kind of filled with his sacred presence. If you tune your mind to those particular thoughts, or what we call as matching of the frequencies, then the resonance takes place. In that particular Shrungeri Pitha, Shrungeri Ashram, there is a small temple devoted to Mandan Mishra, also called as Sureshwaracharya. Mandan Mishra was a great scholar in the present-day Madhya Pradesh, in a small town called Mahishmati Nagari, who later on became the Shishya of the Acharya and became the Mathadipati of the Shrungeri Pitha. Afterwards, he uses two words, two types of errors, two types of avidya a human being suffers from or commits. Two errors we commit, or we are victims of two types of avidya, if you put those words, if you express it that way. Agrahanam, non-apprehension. We don't grasp the reality. And anyatha agrahan, misapprehension, seeing it other way. We do not grasp the reality. That is agrahanam. We do not understand it. And we instead assume it to be something else. Anyatha agrahanam. Mandan Mishra is explaining the same concept, avarana vikshepa, except is using different terminology. As you know, Sanskrit is a very rich language, and there are many, many words for the same idea. The number of words for lotus, number of words for water, number of words for the clouds in Sanskrit are plenty, because it's a very rich language. So Mandan Mishra in this case uses agrahana and anyatha grahana. So as I was studying simultaneously the Mandan Mishra Acharya Bhashya, I was also studying the subject of mathematical statistics, hypothesis testing. In mathematical statistics, you have to test the hypothesis. The Sanskrit word sometimes used for hypothesis is anumeya, that is a suitable inferential postulate. In mathematical statistics, there is a concept of hypothesis testing. You know, a claim is made by a company that the average life of these bulbs, of these lights, fluorescent lights or compact lights or LED bulbs is, let us say, 2000 hours. The company makes a claim that the average life is 2000 hours or 2500 hours, more than other company. Then you have to subject this to a test. That is called as hypothesis testing. Every statement that you make must be testable, is what science demands. If a particular theory is not testable, then how do you believe it is to be true? So testability is a very important aspect. And if you make a statement about a certain product having a certain average life, then that hypothesis must be tested. So as I was studying the concept of mathematical statistics and theory of probability used in hypothesis testing, I found that it is subject to two types of errors. Type 1 error, right hypothesis is rejected. Type 2 error, wrong hypothesis is accepted. See, there are four possibilities. Logically, there are four possibilities, 2 by 2. Hypothesis is right, hypothesis is wrong. So, further two possibilities are right hypothesis is accepted, no problem. Wrong hypothesis is rejected, no problem. But right hypothesis is rejected, then there is a problem. And wrong hypothesis is accepted, there is a problem. So out of these four possibilities, 2 by 2, there are two possibilities, that means two errors in this case. Type 1 error, right hypothesis is rejected. Type 2 error, wrong hypothesis is accepted. There is always, the theory of mathematical statistics says, a non-zero finite probability of committing these errors. Refer to Mandan Mishra. Agrahanam, anyatha agrahanam. Misapprehension. You know, those were the days when the Indo-Chinese war was just over. So I tried to apply this agrahanam and anyatha agrahanam, avarana, vikshepa, and the hypothesis testing to the event which just took place when I joined ISC, the so-called Indo-Chinese War in 1962, when our most popular PM, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, was heading the nation. So I found that in politics, in international relations, and deciding the national affairs, national policies, such errors also occur. Type 1 error, type 2 error. Agrahanam, anyatha agrahanam, these errors occur there also. So all of you know that you may recall the 1962 event. We experienced a terrible consequence, a horrible consequence during the Indo-China War. The trouble continues even to this day. Our PM at that time was extremely popular. We were subject to, at that time, type 2 error. Namely, we accepted a wrong hypothesis. What was the wrong hypothesis we accepted? That China is not an expansionist power, is not a hegemonistic power, but wants to live with us peacefully. This is the hypothesis we accepted in shaping our national policies. So first, agrahanam. We did not correctly know what was in the mind of the Chinese politicians. and anyatha agranam. So not only we did not know, the truth was hidden from us, we accepted a wrong hypothesis that it's a peaceful country. It's not an expansionist country. So around the same time, I came across a statement by Shankaracharya, idam nishtha, idam iti akarak avidya. Idam nishtha. We are studying idam. While studying idam, it looks something similar. That's why the word idam iti akarak avidya. We feel that we know idam, but actually we don't. We take it to be something else, and because we're ignorant of idam, it is called as avidya. And we accept something which is not. Na vidyate iti avidya. What is not, we accept. That's why the word avidya. So Acharya introduced two types of avidya. Idam nishtha, idam iti akarak avidya. I will expand more about it. And aham nishtha, aham iti akarak avidya. Because there is idam and aham. So aham nishtha, aham iti akarak avidya. It is aham nishtha. So we did not know exactly what was in the minds of the Chinese. That's why it's called as aham nishtha. We only knew what they're saying, what they're writing. They exchange diplomats, meetings take place, our diplomats go, their diplomats come, they meet in United Nations. So because we are dealing with human beings, we call it aham nishtha. And based on their statements, based on some deals or treaties they sign, we make a certain hypothesis about them. And because that hypothesis is not there, it is avidya, na vidyate iti. That's why aham nishtha, aham iti akarak avidya. Two types of avidya we are subject to. I strongly recommend, even though I am a small person, our politicians should read Shankariya darshan so that we don't commit these mistakes which Mandan Mishra has talked, that is agranam and anyatha agranam. What is deep inside the minds of the Chinese politicians and the Chinese government is hidden from us, is amurta, not known. What we know is only their words, some of their actions, and that is murta. So we see a karya. And from this murta, we have to infer the amurta. Karya anumeya. Anumeya. Our understanding of their intentions is inferred understanding. In Urdu, it is called as mansuba. Chinese लोगों के मंसूबे क्या है? What is deep inside their mind? And we have to infer this mansuba. What is their thinking? What is their strategy? And because it is inferred, the Viveka Chudamani terminology of Acharya is karyanumeya, inferred from karya. Karyanumeya iti maya. And our inferences, Acharya says, and we also found out from our experience, turn out to be false. That's why falsifiable. Badhogya. And hence mithya. It has been falsified. This was the inference of our government at the time, that China is not an expansionist, is not an hegemonistic power, but wants to live with us peacefully. This particular hypothesis was inferred by us and was falsified by the later events. So, very tempted to quote here the great Bhashya of Acharya, Yatra Yatra Jnana Nivartam Tatra tatra mithyatvam yatha shukti rajatadau. It's a beautiful Sanskrit statement. For many Indians, it is not very difficult to know Sanskrit because our mother tongues contain lot of Sanskrit words. Each language in India has borrowed very heavily from Sanskrit, even though we may not know Sanskrit grammar and how the verbs decline, etc., all the vibhakti pratyayas. But I think if you read a shloka or a mantra and read its Marathi, Kannada, English, Hindi commentary, we can go back to the original shloka and understand its meaning. In fact, our great first president of India, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, said, Bharatasya bhashayam janani sanskritam iti sanskritasya patane neva bharatasya patanam sambhavet. If we ignore Sanskrit, then the patana of Bharata is possible. So this particular Sanskrit bhasha of Acharya, even though couched in very technical terminologies, but you can decipher, decode and understand it very easily. Yatra yatra jnana nivartyam. Whenever a certain statement or a hypothesis or an inference is jnana nivartya, sublated by an additional knowledge, tatra tatra mithyatvam. That means our inference was mithya. Yatha shukti rajatadau. So what was existing outside is shukti. That was idam. And we mistake that shukti to be rajata. Yatha shukti rajatadau. Acharya has given an example. Like a shukti is mistaken to be rajata, and later on further inquiry, this particular mistake has been sublated, falsified, and hence it is jnana nivarta. Now this udarana of Acharya is only a method of illustrating the basic siddhanta. So whatever inferential hypothesis we made about the true intentions of the Chinese was falsified. So not only while doing the research, idam nishtha research, because science deals with idam, there also the truth is hidden from us and we make some other assumption which later on gets falsified. But also while studying the human relations and the politics, or even while studying oneself, I think we commit errors, aham nishtha. So I was immensely impressed with this classification of avidya by our great Acharya. Idam nishtha, idam iti akarak avidya, aham nishtha, aham iti akarak avidya. I have given the example of the Indo-Chinese war to illustrate the aham nishtha aspect. We'll give some more examples to illustrate the idam nishtha aspect from developments in science. From this discussion so far, it is somewhat clear now that generally we do not get yathartha jnana as it is. And the definition of the darshan shastras about yathartha jnana is very interesting. See, yadvati yad prakarakatvam yatharthatvam. What exists outside, call it yat. When we see a certain object, call it yat. Yadvati yat prakarakatvam. And if you make theories based on what it is, then that is yathartha. When that is not there, for example, tadvati tat abhavati tat prakarakatvam. It is not there, tat abhavati. Something that is not there. And even then, we think it is there, tat prakarakatvam, ayatharthatvam. And Acharya illustrates it with sarpa abhavati sarpatva prakarakatvam. Even though the sarpa is absent, we think it is the sarpa, ayatharthatvam. So in extremely small sutra, our darshan shastra, the Acharya Bhashya, describe yathartha jnana and ayathartha jnana. So these words used by yathartha and ayathartha started making sense. Many people use yathartha, tathya, ayathartha, tathyahin. They have the same meaning. आपकी बातों में कुछ तथ्य नहीं है, ये तथ्यहीन है. Many times these words are used. So as we take more data, our understanding changes. So at every step, whatever understanding we have, either for aham or for idam, is asanna, maybe some kind of an approximation, only to be falsified when more data emerges. So we say it is a badhita prameya. Prameya has been falsified. It is wonderful that Acharya uses this word jnana nivartya. In just 2 minutes, I will stop for the day. So I started thinking about the word yadvati and tat abhavati. Yat, something is there, and we see it that way. Yadvati. Tat abhavati, something is not there, but we see it there. Tat prakarakat. Further, I found that the truth must be this way. If you make that to be an obstinate hypothesis, then the buddhi becomes yadvati. When the buddhi becomes powerfully yadvati, it must be this way and it can't be other way, then pratibandhika, it stands in the way, it obstructs your path to truth. So that the truth must be this way and no other way. I will illustrate this with many examples from Abhijata Vijnana, classical science. So started in my mind thinking about yadvati, tadvati, yat abhavati, tat abhavati, tat prakarakatvam, yatharthatvam, ayatharthatvam. Very interesting words. Particularly the word I told you, sarpabhavati, sarpatva prakarakatvam avidya. So I found that our great Shankaracharya, what a great darshanik he was. When he lived, science, engineering, mathematics has not progressed so much. During our times, I have many examples from different branches of science to illustrate these siddhantas. But during his times, physics, chemistry, mathematics, engineering did not progress so much. Still, he could see through with his siddha prajna. He could see through and tell this important siddhanta about avidya, about maya, about yathartha jnana, about ayathartha jnana, about avarana shakti, about vikshepatmak shakti, agrahanam, anyatha grahanam. I always believed, therefore, I always believed from those times that every student of science must study Shankara Bhashya, and his understanding of his own subject improves if you study Shankara Bhashya. The Vedanta and Vijnana, they go side by side because both of them are seekers of truth. So Nitin, I'll stop here and let's open it for few questions and then move next day.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Thank you very much for a very wonderful session. Viewers, if you have any questions, now is the time to post them on Q&A box and chat box. Sir, we have received one question on our Facebook group. The question is, can you uh, explain the difference between Maya and Adhyasa?
Yeah, very good question. And I think listed as one of the topics which is going to come. I have something like 60 pages of notes.
Okay.
So I have barely finished only 20 or so today. It depends on spurti. While speaking, you get some spurti. So adhyasa, which appears in the Brahma Sutra, that famous is there, isn't it? That what is that sutra? Paratra पूर्वदृष्टम अवभासः अध्यासः स्मृति रूपः परत्र पूर्वदृष्टम अभ्यास अध्यासः. So there is something in your mind and therefore it is called as smriti rupa, and it is a smriti of something which we have seen, and hence it is purvadrushtam. So paratra is what you see. No, atra, what you see in front of you, that is a sannihita vishaya, and what is smriti roop is asannihita vishaya, and that asannihita vishaya you take to be the truth, and that is the adhyasa. For example, I am going to talk about it. We do lots of measurements of sites and plots. We draw triangles, we draw circles, and we assume that the geometry of the world around you is Euclidean, Euclid's geometry. But later research showed that the geometry of the space-time is not Euclidean. So we have learned Euclidean geometry through the works of Euclid that was stored in our mind, and we did the adhyasa, adhyaropana, that the world geometry is Euclidean. All through in science, there is an adhyasa. There is an adhyaropana of a certain mathematical model as being true, which later on gets falsified. I will, I think, elaborate upon it in great detail in my next talk. Taking
Okay,
many.
sir. Um, I have one question. I mean, this is something that a lot of people I have seen have this. The famous one of the famous statement that is associated with Vedanta is Brahmo Satyam Jagan Mityam. So the designation of Jagat as Mithya, I mean, this is translated as world is illusion. So Vedanta is world negating, and this is a very recurring allegation or confusion, so to speak. So can you shed some light on the notion of Mithya?
Yeah. Again, going back, all of us study Euclid's geometry in school. Euclid's geometry contains 5 postulates. And based on those 5 postulates and rules of deduction, we prove large number of theorems. One theorem is the sum of the angles of a triangle is 180 degrees. I can draw a triangle on a tabletop on a piece of paper and measure those angles and find out that the sum is 180 degrees. There are many theorems in Euclidean geometry. We calculate the area of a plot, of a site, of an agricultural land, and the taxes and the property taxes are laid based on that. We talk of per square foot cost of a certain site and plot. All this Viveka is based on Euclidean geometry. So Euclidean geometry is an approximation to the reality. And all Vyavaharas are possible. But when the triangle is very huge, very, very huge, of astronomical dimension, then the sum of the angles of a triangle is not 180 degrees. The example that is given is in spherical geometry, if I draw a triangle on the surface of a sphere, Earth is a sphere, you can mathematically show that the sum of the angles of a triangle on the surface of a sphere is not 180 degrees. So Euclidean geometry is falsified for certain scales, for some very small scales or some large scales. We live in the world of middle dimensions, not very small scales, not very large scales. And for this world of middle dimensions, Euclidean geometry is a very good approximation. Still, it is falsified when the gravitation is very large, when the matter is very big, Virat. So it is still a very good approximation. So it is not an illusion in the sense that, that it is completely useless. Acharya has very nicely used the word Vyavaharika Satta, called as levels of reality. There are different levels of reality. Pratibhasika Satta, Vyavaharika Satta, and Paramarthika Satta. So you know that the concept of objective reality of classical physics is falsified when you go to the atomic world. That is, the matter outside you has properties independent of the observer. This was the concept of OR, objective reality. I am going to dwell upon it. And that is falsified when you go to the atomic world. So it is not, it is mithya in the sense that it is falsified. It is badhayogya. But still you can do some vyavahara with a certain approximation. All old kings have levied taxes on property based on Euclidean geometry. Einstein has shown that the geometry of the world, space-time, is not Euclidean. Time is not absolute. Space is not absolute. I think it's a very technical concept, and without knowing the technicalities, people use Brahma, illusion, some not very exact words they use. Yatra yatra jnana tatra tatra mithyatvam yatha shukti rajatadav. That which is sublated by additional knowledge, additional inquiry, additional data is called mithya by Acharya. Mithya is a very technical term used by Acharya. I think.
Okay. We have one more question. They're saying that the best one can conceive or be aware of is the state of Ishvara, that is Saguna Brahman, and not the absolute Brahman, either through spiritual inquiry or through scientific inquiry. And they're requesting your comments on this statement.
I think that is absolutely true that we exist in Saguna Srishti. And it's also true according to Advaita Vedanta that the ultimate adhisthana of this Saguna Srishti is the Nirguna Paramatma. It's also made. And we have to make a journey from Saguna to Nirguna. Our sadhana starts in Saguna and slowly goes. I consider that as a limit point of a sequence. But all our vyavaharas, prapanchas, everything takes place in Saguna Srishti. The Marathi saints have written a lot about this Saguna Nirguna Vichara. The Adhisthana, take for example, everything around you has a color, red color, green color, blue color. If you take a copper lota, it has that reddish color. Now, we are told by our chemistry teacher and physics teacher that the copper lota is made of copper atoms. A piece of charcoal is made of carbon atoms. What is the color of carbon atom? What is the color of copper atom? So whatever I see in a gross world, can I apply it to that? So one saguna is replaced by another saguna. That saguna is replaced by another saguna. That replaced by another saguna. And as we go to the limit, to the ultimate, our Vedantins say, we merge into the Nirguna. Actually, this Saguna Nirguna Vichara and Vivechana requires a separate talk, probably even more, not just one. I have a lot of material with me.
We would love to organize another talk by you, sir, on this Saguna Nirguna Vichara.
Sure.
So we are almost out of time, and I have just one last question. Basically, they are asking you to. The question is for some suggestions and tips to understand the relevance of the deeper meaning of Vedas to current technology.
Okay. I will, I think, reflect upon it.
Okay, sir. You can take it to tomorrow session. Yeah. Okay, viewers, with this, we come to the conclusion of today's session. I thank Dr. Deshpande ji from on the behalf of entire Advaita Academy for this fantastic session. Thank you for coming on our show, sir. And we look forward to tomorrow's session. Shri Guru Bhyo Namah.
Okay.